Hello folks and welcome to another video. In this one I'll be having a look at a technology from a modder called LukeFZ. This technology is called Uniscaler. So essentially it works in any games that already have FSR3 or DLSS but don't have frame gen. So certain games won't be getting the newest versions of these technologies, which is annoying, but thankfully this chap has come up with a way of getting around that. So you've got Uniscaler, but you do need to go on this chap's Patreon basically and pay for it. But it essentially works with nearly every game, so I don't really have an issue with that. So what you would do is you would go on his Patreon, link that to your Discord, and then go on his Discord and download Uniscaler and Uniscaler Common. This is version 11. And what you would do is take these files from both and extract them into the folder where the game exe is located. For example, Dead Space. This is a fairly good looking game, but it's not incredible. And I found that even with an RTX 4070, I was finding it difficult to get to 120 FPS, even with turning off things like RTX. Now, with this technology, I have got RTX and everything turned to Ultra, and I'm playing 120 FPS, albeit at 1080p. So it's important with Unreal Engine games not to put it here. This isn't the actual true executable. You'll want to go. It's hard to find on here. I think it's under data. It's a weird place trying to find it on here, but you'll find it anyway. The main thing is that it'll actually say. It'll say, normally if it's an Unreal game, it'll say shipping at the end. Actually, in terms of Dead Space, this is where the actual exe is located. So you'll paste all the files in there, and before you know it, you're running Dead Space at 120 FPS. So I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like, and that I've got everything on Ultra as well. So here we are in Dead Space. I'll start off by going to the graphics menu. Video options, so here we are, 1080p at 120 Hz. This doesn't always work with HDR, but we'll go ahead and try it. It didn't work on the old version, maybe it'll work on this one. Seems to be running okay there we go. Now the reason I'm running it at 1080p is because I want to get 120 Hz refresh rate. This TV does support 4K, but then you're only getting 60. I prefer a higher refresh rate personally. It changes this so it now says only AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution 2. Ignore that, it's actually FSR3 and it's running with frame gen. So I've got everything turned up to Ultra, including ray tracing. There we go. Come out of that. And just need to change this. This won't affect you, but I prefer it in stereo if I'm playing it over the little speakers. There we go, let's continue the game. Now, you might be looking and going, well, it only says 92 FPS at the moment. Why does it only say that? That's because this game has a couple of issues with asset streaming. There you go, once they've all streamed in, again, you're at 120 FPS basically locked. Now, yeah, you might say, well, it's only 1080p. Well, I prioritise frame rate over really, really high resolution. High resolution is nice, but I think frame rate is, in my opinion, more important. So if we go through somewhere like here, where there's lots of alpha effects, and we can get to a big area, I can show you how well it runs. As you can see, there's tons of alpha effects from these nozzles that keep opening up. And not a dropped frame, or perhaps one dropped frame. I've also got it V-synced, because you can get a locked 120 on this. It's actually V-synced as well, which does get you a better image in my opinion. So this is a pretty big area. You get that initial drop as it loads in textures. I think that's one thing with this game they could have done better for definite. But there we go. You're not going to get ray tracing at 120 FPS on a console. So that's been Dead Space running at this rather excellent 120 FPS, and it really increases your reaction time as well, how quickly you can react and move and whatnot to shoot these creatures. And for me, it's made the game a lot more enjoyable. Yes, it does still have traversal stutter, but it's not as bad as it was, because I get a locked frame rate on this. And overall, it is a rather good game, to be honest, I think. And I think they've done a good job in remastering it. So there we go. So another game I'm going to show you is the Ascent. And I'll explain why I've applied this technology to that game in a moment. So here we are in the Ascent. Now this game does have its range of issues, for example, crashing on startup, a fairly poor DX12 implementation that causes it to seem to lag or lock up. In general, if you leave it long enough, it will right itself. But I'm basically playing this game, I think I'm pretty much the absolute highest settings on everything. Yeah, Ultra on everything, with DLSS on, and because I'm using the Uniscaler app in a really busy built-up area like this, with everything on Ultra, I'm hitting 110 FPS. And obviously, as you'll be aware, ray tracing is a major hit on graphics. Now, if I was to say knock everything down to high, which in all honesty, you probably won't see any visual difference whatsoever. If I go ahead and do that, once Unreal Engine sorts itself out with loading in the different assets, hopefully that will get us pretty close to the 120 FPS mark. Now, the ray tracing is a heavy thing in this game, because it uses proper ray tracing, as it were. So what you're looking at is ray trace shadows, ambient occlusion, and reflections. That's pretty heavy duty, to be honest. So yeah, that's still, even with this mod, that's still going to tax your game fairly hard. Although we're getting over 100 FPS, such that in most areas, because most areas in the game aren't as busy as this, you will be able to hit 120 FPS. And like I said, you do get these hitches still, because it is an Unreal Engine game. It's amazing that Unreal Engine started off its life on PC, and yet they're really bad at getting it to run smoothly without hitching. I don't know if that's entirely down to the engine, or if it's just developers are either lazy or not particularly au fait with the fact that shader compilation is going to cause stutters. Of course, the thing is, you're going to get this every time you upgrade the graphics card driver as well. That's one thing I wish it wouldn't do. I wish it would just leave the shaders alone. But it doesn't. Every time you upgrade the driver, it has to redo the shaders. And this game doesn't seem to have a pre-compilation stage, which is a bit of a problem. But all that aside, you can see the reflections and whatnot look really rather nice. And I'm coming up here at 120 FPS. And because most of the game isn't in these really busy sections, but it looks really nice. Again, I'm not playing in 4K because I actually quite like a higher frame rate personally. That's more important to me. So there we go. That's this game running at 120 FPS. Now there's a few other games I've tried it out on as well. Games that might have DLSS frame gen, but therefore if you were to use an older graphics card or an AMD graphics card, you then cannot actually play that with frame gen. So on laptops, for example, that have older graphics cards, such as, that looks like the Millennium Falcon, such as a 1660 Ti, this technology can be even more useful in keeping those older systems fully running. So there you go, there's a couple of games just to show you how well this technology works. Like I said, it basically works on any game that has FSR 2 in it, or even FSR3, but any game with FSR 2 or DLSS, this will change it so that you're essentially running with FSR, but you can have frame gen then in any of these games. Now this is something really the developers should do, but if the game's been out a number of years, I get it, they probably don't want to spend the money, to be honest, which I do understand. But this is a bit of a game changer really, because I've got an RTX 4070 in here. That's a pretty decent graphics card, but like anything, when it comes down to ray tracing, that just beats heavy on these cards. Oh, here we go. I'll tell you what else. When you are in the middle of a battle, these extra FPS really do help. So, does it work in every single game? No. The game needs to have a frame generator. A FSR3 or DLSS already built in, which obviously this one does. So that's not a problem. Now, if you're looking to enhance the frame rate, for example, in games that do not have those technologies, older games probably perhaps won't, then what you'll need to do is use another technology that I've reviewed, and that technology is called lossless scaling. It's available for one-off payment on Steam. I've done a review on it, and what it can also help to do, never mind just simply increasing your frame rate, is it can take older games and allow you to then play those games at higher frame rates than what would have been possible before. For example, some games like Silent Hill Homecoming have a locked 30, whereas that technology will actually overcome that. So here you go, that's another issue faced by this game. You suddenly encounter a lockup, and you might be thinking, oh, perhaps I should just close the game, but then it loads back in. So Unreal Engine does produce nice looking games, but by God, there are a lot of issues with that engine. And I don't know if it, like I said, I don't know if it's the developers or if it's the actual engine, but it does have some issues. So there you go, that's been my review on Uniscaler. Oh, actually I should say as well, it won't work in online games. Or it will work, but the online games won't allow it. So I tried it in Fortnite, because I thought it'd be nice to play Fortnite online with the absolute highest settings, but also at a high frame rate. But it won't allow it. It sees it as a cheat, which is, you know, I get it. It's a one-size-fits-all sort of software, so it won't work on that. But forgetting about the online games, if you want to really enhance your game experience and get more out of an older computer, for example, my laptop has a 1660 Ti graphics card, and this really enhances these games. So I'm playing this then on the laptop, the high settings and everything, and I'm getting about 90 FPS. Now that's a 5-year-old laptop, 1660 Ti, and that it does a really good job. So hats off to LukeFZ. Don't hate on him for the fact that he put his stuff on Patreon first. You know, at the end of the day, he's done a lot of work on this, so I think it's worth supporting him. Another issue you might have seen is that in movement, it does kind of blur and mess up your UI a little bit. So you won't see it on the map up there, but if you look to the bottom right, where my weapon loadout is, it will blur it as you move. You soon get used to that. It doesn't. I mean, you don't need to look at that constantly, so it doesn't really matter. But I would highly recommend getting this software, even if you've got a higher end graphics card, because you can then use it. For example, if you had a 4K 120Hz TV, you could then potentially run the game at 4K 120Hz as well. So there you go. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please remember to hit that like button, leave me a comment, subscribe to my channel. You know, share this video and my channel on your socials, that helps a lot, and feel free to check out my Patreon as well. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.